Nigeria's COVID-19 cases exceed 50,000 as NCDC records 476 new infections. President Buhari approves 13 billion naira for takeoff of community policing. In international news, Putin's best known and fiercest critic, Alexei Navalny, in serious but stable condition in a Siberian hospital after suspected poisoning. And in sport, Amokachi appointed as special assistant on sport.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Nigeria's coronavirus cases have now exceeded 50,000, just as Nigeria Center for Disease Control Center confirmed 476 new infections across the country. 7 deaths were also recorded on Thursday. The center also confirmed that of all the more than 50,000 cases, 37,569 persons have recovered and are now discharged. Sadly, 992 COVID-19 patients have died so far. Of the new recorded figures, Lagos remains the epicenter of the virus with 235 more cases, followed by the Federal Capital Territory with 44 cases. Kaduna, Borno, Plateau, Abia, Edo, Rivers, Katsina, and Oyo states all recorded cases in double digits. 8 states recorded cases in single digits. President Muhammadu Buhari has officially approved 13 billion naira for the community policing scheme in the country. The presidency has appointed Vice President Yemi Osinbajo to ensure that the funding is well utilized and to report back to the National Economic Council. 3 other governors, including Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State, as well as the Minister of Finance, the SGF, and the Inspector General of Police, are all joining the Vice President in the task. The fund would also be used to improve the security infrastructure in Nigeria and deliver a more efficient policing framework. Nigeria's inflation rate rose further in June 2020 to more than 12.5% higher than what was recorded in May. This was the latest CPI report released by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. Now, economic experts are worried about the surging inflation rate. Correspondent Deji Badmos has the details.
This rice meal has only just come alive after being literally grounded for several months because of the COVID-19 induced lockdown imposed by the government in the wake of the outbreak of the virus in Nigeria. The meal accounts for part of the 7 million metric tons of rice consumed by Nigerians annually. But John Matthew, who runs the mill along with the rice farm, says the disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic created scarcity and pushed up the price of rice.
When there was interstate lockdown, there was no movement. Even when you get the product and they say these are foodstuffs, they should be allowed to pass, you find, there are a lot of difficulties on the road. Police will come with its own story, they packed you all, you sleep in the checkpoint.
Virtually every farmer in the country had the same experience, and even though the restrictions have now been eased, recovery is proving very slow, and it is part of what is reflected in the new inflation figure, especially that of food inflation, which is now at 15.48%, and that is giving a lot of people a cause for worry.
Food is important to everyone, particularly at this difficult time, and also based on the fact that Nigeria is the #1 country in the world for the highest percentage of household income that is spent on food. So, which means we have to make sure that as much as possible, the inflation on food does not push more people into extreme poverty. So the way to also do that is to try and have a lot of local substitute for a lot of the things that we currently import.
2 rounds of devaluation, the removal of oil subsidy, and to some extent the increment of VAT from 5% to 7.5% have also combined to drive up the prices of goods and services. But experts say the government's options are very limited.
So in Q1 of 2020, government spent 99.2% federal government, of its revenue to service debt. So in times of crisis like this, you have lower revenues, but you actually have higher expenses than before, which means your budget deficit would just, be out of this world. So in a way, there's some, empathy and sympathy for government in trying to raise revenue. But the important thing, and you should not raise revenue in a way that is, going to be counterproductive, particularly to growth, employment generation, and recovery.
At 12.82%, Nigeria's inflation is at the highest in 27 months. Analysts say the figure will likely continue to rise, given the government's drive for revenue to keep the country running and service debts. There are even talks of another round of devaluation.
Nigeria, like many other nations, has had its fair share of the effect of COVID-19 as it nurses more than 50,000 cases. Nigerians seem worried about bus operators' continued indifference to COVID-19 health guidelines. Correspondent Deji Badmus has been busy, and we turn to him once again for that story.
Nothing better reflects the level of non-compliance with the COVID-19 guidelines for public transportation in Lagos than this commercial bus. By the guidelines, it shouldn't have more than one passenger on the front seat and 2 on the 3 rear seats. But all of that is put aside. It's virtually the same story for every other bus in this bus stop. It's simply business as usual. The picture hardly reflecting a city that is the epicenter of COVID-19 in Nigeria.
But at the end of the day, what we have at the back of our mind is that the money we want to make.
See, the most important thing is this nose mask. I believe this thing is not a hairball. It's like saliva. But I believe that when you cover your nose properly, there is nothing like COVID-19 can catch you.
But not all are wearing a face mask, including bus conductors who shout at the top of their voice to call passengers to the bus, dispersing droplets in the process, something medical experts say is highly risky.
COVID is an airborne and droplet disease. So with that being an airborne and droplet disease, as they shout out the amount of viruses that come out, and they're not going the 2 meter distance, the social distance they're supposed to keep. So the other person beside them can actually just take that one in. And before you know it, that one also comes down with the virus. So them not wearing the face mask poses a great threat to their passengers, to their family, and even to the environment at large.
But some passengers don't seem bothered by the situation.
This COVID-19, for me, I don't believe, say, what I did in there.
For me, I don't believe there is COVID-19 because I haven't seen anyone who dies from the disease.
But you're wearing a mask. If you don't believe it, why are you?
I only wear the mask just to respect the government order.
Government, everybody to wear, so I need to follow here.
Well, it's pretty obvious that for these drivers and bus conductors, safety is the least of concerns, and that's the reason why all the guidelines the government has put in place to regulate the transport business is completely flouted here, and nothing happens. Nobody's here to check them. For them, it's basically about the money and nothing else.
Coming up, African stories. West African regional leaders demand reinstatement of Mali president removed in a coup on Tuesday. And later, international news. Putin's best known and fiercest critic, Alexei Navalny, in serious but stable condition in a Siberian hospital after suspected poisoning.
You are watching ANN.
Hey, tell them. They told me you are the best around here.
What can I do for you, sir?
I want my own very simple. I don't want any shine. If I see any shine.
Actually, I'd love some sequins on my skirt. And I don't like any frills. I beg, I want frills on mine. But it must not be too tight.
Tight! That tight now, that is what I want. And the transition.
Oh, you know what? I want a gown. Me too. I want to come to burn.
You know what GMS are this for coming? Hey, did you capture all the information?
Of course not.
Actually.
Fantastic.
I give my customers what they love because everyone has their unique style. So why should they wear the same thing? Just like MTN for me, which gives unique data and recharge offers just the way you like it. Just dial *121# and turn up great offers every day.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. The army officers that seized control in Mali have announced that land and air borders will be reopened today, Friday, after closing them following a coup on Tuesday. The coup leaders have also said they are in contact with opposition groups about starting the process of appointing a transitional president. Meanwhile, West African leaders have continued to call for the ousted president, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, to be reinstated immediately. The regional bloc ECOWAS says it is sending envoys to Mali to ensure the return of constitutional order. The opposition has called for a rally today, Friday, in support of the coup. The Mali military leaders have said elections will not be held, but did not give a specified time. They also said they will respect international agreements on fighting jihadists. African and Chinese experts have agreed that a joint effort is needed to take on the battle against COVID-19. The experts were speaking during a virtual forum in Nairobi, during which they called for leveraging on the robust bilateral ties between Africa and China to hasten the growth of the continent's manufacturing sector. And Yawira Ngwagi reports.
Delegates from China, Kenya, South Africa and Nigeria gathered virtually for the conference with one goal: to discuss the impact of COVID-19 in the manufacturing sector and enhance China-Africa cooperation in fighting the pandemic. In wake of the pandemic, African countries are in dire need for a constant supply of medical and personal protective equipment. With enhanced cooperation between the two economies, this could provide an opportunity for Africa's manufacturing sector to meet this demand in a cost-effective way.
Post-COVID manufacturing is key to creating new sources of livelihood on the continent. Africa and China need to scale up their cooperation in industrialization and manufacturing as a necessary step towards post-COVID-19 recovery agenda. Without a doubt, investment in Africa is key to post-COVID economic recovery.
It thus has meant that countries can be forced to do with limited importation of manufactured products. The urgent need for personal protective equipment has been a clear example of the urgency needed to build manufacturing capacity to manufacture personal protective equipment to save lives and to slow down the rate of infections. This fresh example motivates the need to enhance China-Africa cooperation on fighting COVID-19 and promoting manufacturing.
The two-day conference also focuses on a series of issues. These include China-Africa cooperation in infrastructure development and its role in boosting the manufacturing industry in Africa, and the opportunities available and measures needed to promote cooperation in the post-COVID world.
We should continue to provide room for manufacturing cooperation. In recent years, a number of industrial parks and special economic zones in African countries have been completed and put into operation, providing a favorable environment for foreign businesses, including the Chinese ones, to invest in Africa. In the future, African countries can continue to improve industrial parks and special economic zones and try to attract investment from more international businesses.
The coronavirus has impacted negatively in the global economy, Africa and China included. But with tragedy comes a silver lining where Africa, through cooperation with China, can develop its manufacturing sector to cater to the continent's needs while creating a livelihood for millions. After all, there's nothing more empowering than consuming goods that are made in Africa.
Every country has tried to ensure its citizens are protected from the COVID-19 pandemic through measures to contain the spread. In South Africa, there is a delicate group that has been hit hard by COVID-19. And correspondent Julie Schuer has the story.
I'm in Kliptown, one of South Africa's poorest areas. People here live in shacks with no running water or electricity. Putting food on the table is a daily struggle. COVID-19 has only made life harder for these people and for their children.
People were required to stay at home, and it's almost impossible to stay home in this community because you've got a one-room shack that is shared by about 5-6 people. I think it was going to be better if kids from communities like ours were in school rather than being at home, because when they're here you'll see they're playing on the streets, and when they're on the streets sometimes they don't have their masks, they're not sanitizing.
Despite being surrounded by all this poverty, there is a beacon of hope. It's known as the Kliptown Youth Program. Only 2 grades are back in school since restrictions were eased, and there's little time to play with more than half the academic year lost.
What we did as Kliptown Youth Program was to start a holiday program, a school holiday program, where children have to come here for 2 hours a day. And in that 2 hours they get an opportunity to do some online learning. In addition to that, they will also spend time reading, and we communicate with different schools in terms of getting resources that we can use to share with our kids.
Safety has also become a concern as the lockdown drags on. Many children are left roaming the streets when parents are at work. There's also been a spike in child abuse and gender-based violence.
Once they leave us, we don't know what they get themselves into, because one of the biggest challenges in this community is alcohol abuse. And you know that some things such as gender-based violence are mostly led by people being intoxicated. And the other thing is that people around here are very stressed. People are challenged in a way that every time when people are frustrated, the solution, they take out their frustration to their children or their partners.
The reality for these children has been harsh. This time has been unsettling, and it may take years to return to what they know.
When we return, international news. Britain's best known and fiercest critic, Alexei Navalny, in serious but stable condition. And later, sport. Amokachi appointed as special assistant on sport.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Russia's best known and fiercest critic of President Vladimir Putin is reported to be in serious but stable condition in a Siberian hospital as speculation that he was poisoned mounts. Alexei Navalny is in intensive care at the hospital in Omsk, Russia, where he is being treated after falling so violently ill on a flight to Moscow. The plane had to make an emergency landing to get him to the hospital. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Emmanuel Macron have both offered medical help and possible asylum. Navalny is the latest in a long line of Kremlin opponents to be suddenly afflicted by bizarre and sometimes fatal medical emergencies. Russian doctors have refuted claims that Navalny was poisoned. They have refused to transfer 44-year-old Navalny to a German hospital. On the fourth day of a virtual party convention, the U.S. Democratic Party gave its presidential nomination to Joe Biden on Thursday. In an eloquent, emotional, clear and powerful acceptance speech, Biden called on Americans to unite. He dispelled criticisms lobbed at him almost daily by President Donald Trump and concerns of some supporters about his fitness for the job at 77 years old. Many say he delivered on the speech. A historian, Mark Bestlaw, says on Twitter, this was easily the best and most effective speech Biden has ever delivered. During 4 days of the convention, Democrats highlighted several themes, including compassion, empathy, faith, and righteous anger. Speaker after speaker had associated these traits with Biden. The Democratic presidential nominee vowed to defeat Trump and end the American season of darkness. Venezuela, whose economy's woes have been worsened by COVID-19, has now taken further steps to contain the spread of the coronavirus. It now rotates grocery shopping days to disperse crowds. And correspondent Mary Training tells us how that works.
Photographer Susana Leon has decided to try her luck. A brand new system for safe food shopping during the coronavirus pandemic is in place in Venezuela's capital. Like other residents, she has been assigned one weekday and one weekend day when she's allowed to shop in a grocery store. But her national ID number assigns her to Sundays and Thursdays. And even though she needs bread and vegetables, she cannot get inside the market today to do her shopping, and she doesn't want to wait.
Today I need to buy some things that I couldn't buy on Sunday, but with this new restriction, I can't find what I need when I'm allowed to buy it.
Regulations require large supermarkets to make sure shoppers wear masks, to take shoppers' temperatures, and to check their IDs before allowing them inside on their assigned days. The new ID shopping rule is set to last for 30 days. For now and so far, it applies only to Miranda State, the second most populous state in Venezuela, which includes parts of the Caracas metropolitan area. It's been hit hard by the pandemic. The regulation is for shops that sell essential items, although pharmacies are accepted. It's meant to keep people from crowding the markets by limiting the number of days they can shop each week. The idea is to buy everything you need, but to go to the store less frequently.
I think it's good. We will have fewer people gathering in the same place, and that's very good for our health.
But many Caracas residents say they are accustomed to shopping just about every day, and they find the restrictions impractical.
We have to wait, in my case, from Wednesday until Saturday. This is not a solution for anything.
If you're allowed to buy on Thursday and on Monday you look in your kitchen and you don't have any food, what will you do? Wait for Thursday?
Today, Susana tried her luck at a second supermarket, but merchants are complying with the regulation. She's leaving empty-handed, and for the next 30 days at least, she will have to plan to do her shopping on Thursdays and Sundays, her assigned days.
Up next, sport. Amokachi appointed as Buhari's special assistant on sport. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, Minister of Sports and Youth Development Sunday Dare has announced on Thursday Super Eagles former striker Daniel Amokachi's appointment as special assistant to the president on sport. Secretary to the government, Boss Mustafa, also confirmed the appointment of the 47-year-old. Amokachi's new role will see him advising the president on sport-related matters. And FIFA's former president Joseph Blatter has criticized the World Football's governing body after its ethics committee decided to drop a case against current president Gianni Infantino. Blatter says nothing surprised him about the developments because FIFA's controlling bodies are no longer independent under Gianni Infantino. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Have a safe and pleasant weekend.